Hello, welcome to Transforming Lives with Mushekwa. I'm so glad you could actually join me today. So, here's a girl growing up, no brother, no sister. And funny enough, in that environment she's growing up in, there's no little cousin or little family member. In short, there's no little person of her age. So she has a need to have someone in her age group, someone she shares interests with, But lucky enough, there's actually a cousin in the and that becomes someone close to her. So what usually happens to people who are in a situation that I was in is that we take friendships very seriously. Growing up in a home where little ones of your age, you don't have anyone to actually express yourself to. So the moment you have that friend becomes more to you. They become like a family to you. So now what happened is that I had these two little friends from school because of course, I was going to school as well. So I had these two little girls who were my friends and they were within the neighborhood. And growing up in the home where I'm the only child, the only young one, I don't know how to relate when I'm teased because, well, that doesn't happen, between parents and their children. Or maybe I should say it never used to happen between parents and their children, where mothers, fathers would playfully tease you around. So in short, I was not used to a situation of being teased. I didn't know how to react if I'm teased. So in this exposure of having to interact with people outside the home, people of my age group, of course, one day I'm home and I'm playing with my two little friends because they actually came over to my house. So what happens is, they actually tease me. And kids being kids, and well, because I don't know how to react to being teased, what happens is I just go in the house, slam the door, lock myself in, and I leave my friends outside. And now my friends are very sad. Well, at first they are laughing at me, and they are calling me, come outside. They are shouting my name, shouting for me to go outside, and they are laughing, and I'm like, I'm not going outside. But then when they realized that I was not happy with that particular teasing, then they become serious about it, and they are really shouting for my name now in a remorseful way. But guess what? I didn't answer them. So I'm in the house all locked up. And now I have this temptation. And the temptation is, maybe I should just be a loner. Maybe I should just be alone, Maybe it's better for me to be alone. So, well, what happened is after that whole incident, my friends now got tired of calling out my name. And, well, they left. So I actually didn't see them leave. All I know is they stopped calling my name and obviously they left. And after a while, I came outside and I didn't find them. So in short, there was a very, very huge temptation for me to actually decide to be a loner. Well, we'll continue this story. Let me just pay some bills and we will be right back.
Fire. Tambalikeni misemo yose Yesu alaisa. Wemana oshebali natu pandendila Ketule kwaya na kukumo kukufila kuse. Tambalikeni misemo yose Yesu alaisa. Tambalikeni misemo yose Yesu alaisa. Chula na mafya chalo Vimi mumbalwele Wila sakamana Lini ufwae chito Wale sharamaka Lesa kakupela Wila sakamana Iwe omba lyonse No kupatwa lyonse No kutupwa lyonse Wila sakamana
Welcome back. So this is Transforming Lives with Mushekwa. The story continues. The next day we're at school, of course, and well, here are my friends, and they are not receptive at all. And guess what? I really, really need my friends. So now, they're the ones that are playing hard to get, as we'd term it. Because, of course, they really did their work the previous day in trying to show remorse. So here I am trying, to show that I need them. Of course, not in an obvious way. It took a few days, maybe 2-3 days, until I finally told them, I'm sorry, and we would say finally we rekindled the friendship. But the only sad part is that, of course, it did not go back to its original state. Yeah, this time around, well, the frequency of us visiting and playing together was not as it were before. The energy was not the same. But what we can get out of it is that finally there was an attitude of remorse from myself as well to show that what I did was not acceptable. So that's how we rekindled the friendship, except it didn't go back to its original state. But what is good about this little scenario is that I did not succumb to the temptation of being a loner. Because either way, I still needed my friends. I still needed those little human beings of my age with the same interactions as me, I still needed them, and I did not succumb to actually, being a loner. So what can we learn from this that we could actually apply in our lives? There's plenty that we can learn from this, but we may pick a few points. And the first one being that we coexist. We coexist. People are not perfect. So once in a while, people around you are going to offend you, and that is inevitable. And once in a while, because we're saying people are not perfect, even you yourself are going to offend the people around you. So what do we do about that if people are not perfect? It means we need to increase our tolerance levels to tolerate other people's mistakes. There are certain mistakes, of course, that are just way overboard. We cannot tolerate each and every weakness in someone, but our tolerance level should be extended to be able to tolerate other people's weaknesses. Because either way, you are not perfect, and there are people that are tolerating you as well. Most of the times, we only think of ourselves. We don't see ourselves offending. We actually don't even see ourselves making mistakes. Most of the time, there are very few people who actually accept to being offenders. But what we can learn from this is that we coexist and that we need to extend our tolerance levels to be able to accommodate other people's shortcomings. Something else we can pick out of this is that you're not an island. There are times there are certain people actually who would say, you see, this is the reason why I don't like hanging out with people. I'd rather be alone. No matter how much you want to cave in to just being by yourself, you are not an island. You were not created to just exist by yourself. You were created to coexist with others around you. So in as much as you want to cave in and just be by yourself, isolate yourself, you're always going to have a void. And that void is the void of coexistence, because you need to coexist with others. We could also pick something else out of this. But first, let's have a little break and we'll come and pick it up after we pay our bills. We will be right back. Welcome back. This is Transforming Lives with Mushekwa, and we're so glad that you could be with us up to this time. So we'll continue with our lessons. We were saying that we're not an island, that we coexist, that we need people around us. Another thing that we can actually learn is that we need each other. People need people. I'm going to give an example of myself, all right? I'm very entrepreneur-minded, very business-minded lady. So imagine if I was just growing up, accepting the situation I was in, that, oh, I'm an only child and maybe I should just be alone, I should not be interactive. Imagine if I was growing up accepting that situation. What would make me a business person? I mean, what would make of me as a business person if I don't really treasure people? So in our journey of living, people need people. and that is inevitable. People need people. If today, as a business-minded person that I am, I have a product to sell, who's going to buy? It's people that are going to buy it. If anyone that is successful that we know of, who made them successful? It's people. Because that success came out of people realizing the power that was in that person. So people need people, and we need each other. So this is to say that we must value each other. We might not be able to be in tune with everyone. Of course, that is not possible. But if we have the bigger perspective of the fact that people are important to our living, when we have that in our minds, that people make us who we are, because without them believing in who we are, then we can't be who we are. For instance, we can name any successful people that we know. For them to be at the level where they are, of course it took their hard work, but it also took people to notice their contributions. So people need people. One thing we also can learn is that we must value each other. In whatever way that we can, every human being is important. And we must learn to value every human being in whichever capacity they are in today. For instance, let me say if my friends offended me and then I just said, no, I can do better, And then if I didn't go back to actually apologize and make amends, what would have become of me? I would have been lonely, without friends who actually understood me, who we actually collaborated with so well, and I'd probably be looking for other friends, and maybe I would have had friends that would not even understand me. So we need to value each individual that is in our lives, because one way or the other, they are helping us to discover ourselves and to aid us into the direction that we were made to be. So people need people in this journey of living. The other thing I'm going to talk about is that sometimes we are going to find ourselves in situations, and those situations are not of our making. So what do you do when you're in a situation that is not in your making? Imagine, for instance, I'll give you an example. I was born an only child. Did I have power over that? No, I found myself in that situation. So now what happens when you find yourself in a situation like that? Well, join me after the break so that we discover what we can do when we're in situations that are not of our making. We will be right back.
Can malikeni misemo yose Yesu alaisa wewe chula na mafya ya chalo Dimi mumbalwele wila sakamana linyufwa echito wale sharamaka lesa kakupela wila sakamana iwe omba lyonse nokupatwa lyonse nokutupwa lyonse wila sakamana ushitilile muli Yesu fyonse ufaya
Action.
Welcome back. So what do you do when you're in a situation where you find yourself in a circumstance that is not of your making? This is Transforming Lives with Mushekwa. So imagine, like I gave an example of me being, in a situation that was not of my making. So this situation could be anything for anyone. All right, you lose your spouse. It's not of your making. You find yourself in that situation. You lose your child. It's not your making. You find yourself in that situation. Out of nowhere, you lose your job. You found yourself in that situation. There are so many situations people find themselves in. You're just born and your parents die. We've had situations where a baby is an orphan. You can imagine a baby, poor baby, who did not even make themselves. They just find themselves orphaned. So, what do you do when you find yourself in a situation that is not of your making? Well, I got very few words for you. Pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and keep going. Because you know what? Life is always moving. Life will never pause and wait for you to come out of that situation and then to continue moving. Life is always moving. And for as long as life is always moving, we have to live it. The only time life will stop moving is the day that you die. Then life would have stopped moving for you. So for as long as you are living, you have life. Keep living. Pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and keep moving. I would also want to take the opportunity to say thank you to everyone that joined in to listen to our show today. We're so grateful for the support that you've shown. And also, as you can see on the screen, this program is actually available for sponsorship. So for those that would look to sponsor our program, there are numbers that are running on the screen. Please, you can sponsor this program. And finally, as we close our show for today, the thing that you have to pick out of it as we close is pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and keep going. So this has been Mushekwa on Transforming Lives with Mushekwa. Catch me next week, same time, and with more great things on Munati TV. Thank you for having tuned in.